Okay, let's get started. First of all, we're gonna clone the repository to get the starter code, and then we'll change into that directory and run bundle install to install the gems, the Ruby libraries we need, and then we're gonna explore the structure of this Rails app. It's already scaffolded, so it has lots of parts, and we're gonna look at the parts that we need to change. So I'm going to clone the repository. I've done it before, so I'll look at my history. Okay. Okay, so it's cloned. I'll change into that directory. Now let's explore the directory structure. This is a scaffolded Rails app. The files that we need to change are the Rails file, which maps the HTML methods routes to controller actions. And then in the app controller folder, we have this games controller. We're going to use this controller to implement the logic of our application. So since it uses a game object for the game logic, we need to require that file that needs to be copied over from your solution to part 1, or you need to copy it from my solution. And then here we have two private methods provided. So between the actions, so to this controller, each action is completely independent. But to implement this game, somehow the controller needs to remember the game object we used when the game is started. So we're going to use a technique called sessions. We'll persist, or we'll keep track of this object by putting it into a session, and this session is basically some memory storage that an object in the session, in this object that is automatically available to the controller as long as the request or the interaction is part of a sequence of interactions between our server and a particular user. And this is done by using cookies. That's why we have cookies here. So if we put, we have two methods. One is load game, and one is store. So when we call store game, we are taking an instance variable called game, and we are flattening it to a string and put it to this cookies hash, and this is supported by Rails. Basically, it will start a session. It will use cookies to remember where those this user request comes from. So when another request comes from the same user, it will automatically make this data structure, this hash, available, so we can have access to the same game object for the same user. Okay, and then the load game does the opposite. Okay, when we call it, it will use this hash available in the session and retrieve that object and deflate it or inflate it to get the actual object from the string. So this is something that you don't need to worry about for now, so that's why the methods are provided for you. So the only thing you need to do is to remember to do is to call load game to get the game object when you need it, and then store it so that the newly updated game object is stored to the session. So if you remember to do these two things in the controller, it will happen as if that you have the for each user you have this one game object. So you can call the methods on the game object to process the game state. Okay. The next place we want to look at is the views directory. In the views games, we have a number of HTML files already provided for you. And then let's see. Okay, let's look at the show html.erb. This is HTML file with embedded Ruby code. This is provided for you, and it's it matches the Lo-Fi UI sketch pretty well. So if you look carefully, it's basically HTML content with embedded Ruby code. So when we need to show the wrong guesses, we assume there's an instance variable called game, and we simply call the method this method wrong guesses to get that string and inject it to this part of the HTML. So this is gonna dynamically add content to this HTML template. Depends on what variable the state of this variable, this object is. And then we have forms that simply trigger HTTP actions. So this is the form that allows user to make a guess, and then it will use the post method and then send the request to this URL. And there are other view methods. I encourage you to read them and try to understand them, at least have some familiarity with those methods and those files. And here's something interesting. As you recall that when we look at the Lo-Fi UI, there are multiple places that we need the new game button. So instead of duplicating the code in multiple places, we have this partial which defines the form. Okay, it's a form with only one button. It sends a post request to this URL. So that this is the new game button. And then with this partial, whenever we need this new game button, we can simply call render, the Ruby method, Rails method, to just render it. So for the new page, okay, the home page of our app, we just need that. Just render. That will give us the button. Will render the partial. Okay, in the show page, for example, we can generate the button by rendering the partial as well. So whenever we need that button, we just render the partial. Okay, so those HTML files are represents the views, the different pages we want the user to see. But Rails also has this layout file. It's already defined for us. This is called the layout. It's another template, but it contains the layout information. So usually a web app has this uniform layout across all the pages, and for example, they usually have a title, same title, some header and footer. In the views, we don't need to replicate or duplicate the headers and footers, but instead we keep all the information in this file, and then in the middle, in the middle of the layout we call yield, which is gonna call render the particular view. So whenever, for example, if we render the new page, Rails is gonna use the layout file and inject whatever we have in the new.html.erb to this place to replace this yield method call. So this way we can easily have a uniform layout, footer and header available on all our pages. So that's a quick tour of the scaffolded Rails app. So let's get started by adding the solution to part 1 to this app. I'm going to put the solution to the lib directory.